towards the basket, misses one.
Well, hello once again, and welcome to another episode of Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb Gillock, and as always, we've got another great show on the way for you here today. It's hard to believe, but 10 years ago, the Red Wolves were actually the pioneers, and this year we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Red Wolves nickname. And joining me to talk about that, Rebecca Hester and Neil Sabine. Thank you for joining me today, guys.
Thank you.
Well, let's just start off by talking a little bit about it. Let's think back to that 2007-2008 year. What was kind of the atmosphere around campus that kind of led to that switch from the Pioneers to the Red Wolves? Rebecca?
Sure. On campus, the atmosphere is very different than what we have now. Campus was a lot more calm, less students on campus. We had a good student population, of course, but they weren't on campus. They weren't engaged in student activities and things like that. So moving to change things up and create a new culture was really a good drive and a good mission for that change.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Neil?
Well, back then, we had club sports.
Right.
So we had volleyball for women, basketball for men, and then men and women's golf. But they're all club.
Right.
So they weren't affiliated with anything. So it was pretty much a wash between the people that participated and the expenses with those club sports.
Right.
And at the time, we had some fiscal problems, and it didn't seem likely that club sports was something we could sustain over time.
Okay.
So that's when we started thinking about moving to the NAIA and becoming more focused on student athletes versus just club sports were basically just students that kind of like intramurals.
Sure.
Is basically what it was back then. And there was no financial support, no scholarships for athletes at that time.
Right.
And so that's when the thought was to move to a little bit more structured program and also expand the number of sports we had on campus.
Right. You were also talking before we went on the air that at one point in time it looked like athletics may not have ever been a thing at IU East because of some of those issues, right?
Exactly. We back then is when they built the new Ivy Tech across the way, and at that time we used to have remedial courses like in mathematics. It was about half of our credit hours, and when Ivy Tech built the new building and there were some changes at the state, all remedial classes went to Ivy Tech. So we took a huge hit on our campus financially.
Okay.
And there was concern about the future of the campus. And one of the things that we had outside people look at us, and we tended to have a lack of direction of what we wanted to do. And we thought athletics might be a way to do two things. Number one, help identify the campus. And at that time, it was believed for every student athlete we had, we brought two more students along with them.
Okay.
Like, so, say for example, you're a basketball player, and you're from Milan. Well, then there's two other kids that you knew that didn't play basketball but knew you. And when you came here, they came along with you.
Okay.
So that was really the kind of the beginning of athletics. Back then, for club sports, it was about 34,000, maybe 35,000. And we looked at joining the NAIA. There was money up front to get into the NAIA and to our conference.
Sure.
So there was upfront money. And then we went from about 34 to about 140
Oh, wow.
in the budget. So it was a big change. And so the concern was about the student athlete. Were they going to help bring the academics up or bring the academics down? Because when you look at IU, you know, a lot of those student athletes down there leave early, never graduate. And so the many of the faculty and even administration at the time looked at Big Ten athletics versus what usually happens on smaller campuses. And on smaller campuses, almost all the students graduate and they take a full academic load and they have to have a certain GPA, which the general student body doesn't have. They're actually higher than to keep your eligibility
Okay.
than the student population at large.
All right.
And over time, the student athletes have outperformed, as a rule, the general population of students.
Oh, nice. Well, Rebecca, let's think back again to that starting process. There's obviously a committee formed, from my understanding. That was before I got to IU East, so I'm kind of learning about it as we go here. But there's some type of committee formed, and that kind of was a narrowing down process of what names there was going to be, and obviously to the finalists. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yes, it was a process. It took quite a few months. It's been a couple years, of course, so trying to remember that whole process. But we look toward the campus community as well as the Richmond community and the community that we serve within our student population. And we look toward others to give us suggestions and ideas and thoughts. And we took that into consideration, narrowed down the list. Then we opened a huge vote. And we wanted to get as many people to vote as possible.
Right.
We wanted everybody to feel a part of the process
Sure.
and have buy-in, of course. And through that month-long process, we were able to clarify kind of what we wanted to be seen as and what we wanted to embody as a mascot in a campus.
And Neil, why do you think Red Wolves was the popular choice there?
I voted for Centaurs.
Centaurs, all right.
I like that. I like that. The reason Red Wolves got picked, because wolves were originally here before we were here, and Red Wolves may have been the type of wolf native to Indiana.
Okay.
So Peggy Brandstrader put that name forward, and it was one of the finalists. And like Rebecca said, the vote was tallied, and Red Wolves was the winner. Much to my chagrin, because it would have been cool to be Centaurs.
Yeah, it would be. So we had Centaurs. Rebecca, what were some of the other unique names that were thrown out there? Do you remember?
A lot of animals, mostly. There were some mythological type of names also, some that I think people truly just put out there to see what if, you know, because you never know if you don't put your opinion out there. So anything from lions to bears, centaurs, just anything that you could think of, people truly put out there, because we were just looking at everything. You know, it was a whole rebranding time for the campus, and the possibilities were endless.
Sure. Now, once you knew who the winner was, what that finalist was, what was the days like leading up to the announcement that, hey, we're going to become the IU East Red Wolves?
It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of secrecy in a good way. You know, we like to be transparent as a campus in general, but this wasn't the time for that. Right. So not only did we have to have the design created and, you know, go back and forth between marketing and what the image would look like, but leading up to the official announcement to the community and the campus community as well, we ordered shirts to give away. We did a whole event, of course, and so there was a lot of fun times and a lot of secrecy, but all around good things, of course.
Right. All right, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the Red Wolves nickname next here on Inside IUE Sports.
The leaders of First Bank Richmond encourage their employees to give their best effort towards serving the community. One organization very dear to many First Bank Richmond employees is the Third Grade Reading Academy. First Bank staff volunteers hundreds of hours and even host Academy students on site. Doing great things together stands for First Bank's commitment to continue doing all they can to make life better for their customers and our community. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.
What if a home phone could also be a smartphone? And what if that home phone could save you money on your home and wireless bill at the same time? With Xfinity Voice, you get amazing technology like readable voicemail on your smartphone, caller ID on your TV, and even text messaging, all for a low price. Start saving with unlimited nationwide talk and text and switch to Xfinity Voice for just $19.99 a month for 12 months. Call 1-800-XFINITY today.
Almost done.
Now you can pay your bill, manage your appointments, and check your connection status. anytime, anywhere.
Oh, so you're protesting? Okay.
Introducing Xfinity My Account, available on any device.
This is where a busy mom can work toward a bachelor's degree from a top national university during softball practice. It's where a service member can continue his college studies from anywhere in the world, and where you'll benefit from one of the country's most effectively delivered online programs.
Woohoo!
So, if you've ever wondered if a college education is really worth it, this is where you'll see that it is. This is Indiana University East Online.
And welcome back to Inside IU East Sports. We're talking about the 10-year anniversary of the IU East Red Wolves nickname. And let's just go ahead and continue on our conversation. We've talked about leading up to that unveiling day of the Red Wolves nickname. But what were some of your favorite memories of that day, Neil?
Well, one of the things was we didn't know what the Red Wolves was going to look like because that has to fit in with IU's graphics.
Okay.
So even though we had Red Wolves, we didn't know what the Red Wolf was going to look like.
Okay.
And so it's interesting that we didn't think of all of the offshoots of the Red Wolves, like the pack, all the kind of slogans we have now,
Right.
we never thought about. We just thought about the mascot itself and what it was going to look like. And I agree with Rebecca. There's a lot of secrecy around it because we didn't know what that thing on your shirt was going to look like.
Right.
We knew what the other campuses look like, and they all have to kind of have a similar format.
Right.
And so, we're really happy with how that turned out. But at the time, we just had the name and didn't have the picture.
Right. Were there any, I know from what I remember seeing here on the screen, you guys had a ceremony. What was kind of your reaction to that?
Well, it was a big step, right? Going from club sports and we didn't know if we were going to be competitive, right? So we were in the Kentucky something conference, KAIC.
Yeah, Kentucky Intercollegiate.
Yeah, right. So anyway, we didn't know. Now we're in kind of the bigger leagues, going from club sports to really serious athletics,
Right.
where your standings matter and the athletes you get matter. And we didn't want to be the whipping child for all the other schools that were in the conference. And early on, we had to get coaches, right? We had to get some things together, and it was tough,
Sure.
getting out of the gate and getting all the required materials to the conference and to the NAIA to make ourselves eligible.
Right.
And so, there was a lot of trepidation about would we be competitive, or how was this going to flesh out? Because at that time we only had half a gym.
Right.
Right, that's all we had. Right, so we played. We always had to play off site,
Right.
and that was kind of difficult. Right, you didn't really have a home like a lot of the other places that you went to. They had their own home gyms, and we were playing at the high school gym
Right.
at the time. But we had pretty good crowds
Yeah.
back then, even though we were off site.
Yeah, that's good. Rebecca, what were some of your favorite memories from that day?
Some of my favorite memories were just the students who were there. There were faculty and staff that were there, of course. They were interested, but the buy-in that we had from the student body. This whole thought process really came from the student body during some conversations, chat with the chancellor, as we call it, and being able to take a nugget of an idea from the students about, can we be something different? What is a pioneer? Why are we the pioneers? And so to take that thought and that nugget and run with it and make it into something bigger and better. And as Neil was talking about some of the financial challenges that we had as a campus, and how everything can really just better the campus overall, not just from enrollment management, but student athletes. GPAs have gone up, the holistic approach. And so seeing the students there and embracing it and being really excited just really warms your heart. And to see the student athletes up there pulling off the black sheet to unveil what are we and what will we become, that was just really exciting.
Now, with your job as the director of Campus Life, that was just phase one for you. Phase
Oh,
two
yes.
was coming up with a mascot,
Yes.
what it was going to be called, what it looked like. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, literally that day was phase one. From there, there was so much work to do fun work, absolutely. What can we do with the idea of Red Wolves? What are Red Wolves? How can we embody that into our campus culture that we were getting to create? And that was such a fun time. And we're still in that, of course, because we're always thinking about what is Red Wolf, what does that embody, and how can we incorporate that into the students and the campus engagement. So that was just the beginning, absolutely.
And what was the process in coming up with the name Rufus?
That was another process,
Yeah.
very similar to the process of determining what would be our name, Red Wolves. So we again reached out to the campus community, on and off campus, students of course, and we asked for suggestions.
Okay.
And then we narrowed it down, went through voting, and then I remember I remember very, very clearly the game where we unveiled Rufus, the mascot, and his name. So we had a mascot suit that we had created very quickly. Again, everything had to go very quick once
Sure.
we did the unveiling. And his jersey just said IU East, Red Wolves. On the back, it was blank.
Okay.
So on the back, we had just whip stitched on there real quick the name that we did this big unveiling at a game, and everybody was excited, and the students were very excited. There were quite a few people who suggested Rufus.
Okay. Neil, taking a look at the entire process from 2008 to 2018, what's your reaction to seeing how the Red Wolves nickname has grown, how the brand has grown, and what it's turned into?
To be honest, it has really spun off a lot more than Pioneers ever did. And I think that one of the things that athletics brought to this campus is a sense of identity. So that now the academic programs and all that still hold sway, but part of the culture now is not only success in the classroom, but is success within athletics.
Right.
And I think we've been pretty competitive.
Right.
So many of those fears we had earlier of being on the bottom, right?
Right.
The Cleveland Browns of
Right.
athletics, never panned out. We were pretty competitive right out of the gate.
Right.
And so looking at that, what the fears were at the time and how it's turned out great. I mean, it's really, there was a list of concerns that we had to address prior to this change because both, all the campus community had to be on board with this.
Right.
And many of their concerns at that time have it's been just the opposite.
Right.
It's been a great addition to our campus.
Yeah.
It really has.
And Rebecca, he talks about, the competitive athletics here. We've seen, now the teams are starting to get recognition at the national level because of how competitive they are. So IU East as a whole is becoming known nationally. That's huge for the campus, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just our student athletes that are involved, our student body knows them, and it's very neat to see them be successful not only in the gym or at the track or whatever their setting is, but to be successful in the classroom and the other components that Campus Life can bring to the table. The student athletes are involved in student government, they're presidents of clubs, and our student athletes have really brought a lot to our campus. And I just really don't think that we would be where we are with any of that without that change and the culture change and the shift to becoming Red Wolves and having such a strong identity that people know who we are and what we're about, and that we're a pack. We use that pack pride symbolism in everything that we do.
Right. Well, Neil, anything else that you'd like to add about the entire process?
The thing that I'd like to add that we haven't really talked about is the community outreach of our athletes. We're really tied to the community, and our athletes getting in the community really put our best foot forward. I mean, that's really, I think, an important aspect of athletics that's often overlooked, is their role in the community.
Right. And Rebecca, you've seen how these athletes get out time and time again and serve in the community, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, on my Facebook memories that comes up, something came up just the other day. It's definitely been 9 years or so shortly after we became the Red Wolves, and some pictures of the cheerleaders and the basketball team down at the Leland.
Okay.
And we did a meet and greet, and that was one of the first community outreach type of programs that we did. And just the welcoming environment that those Leland residents had, it was just really neat. But moreover, it's really neat to see our college students reacting to that, because some of them haven't really had that type of opportunity with the outreach into the community, whether it's through their high school programs or whatever. And so to see the impact on our students, you know, that was just the beginning of how we are developing and enhancing our students to be prepared for real life and how to interact with people of all ages and classes.
Right. And to kind of go off of that, I mean, one of the things I've noticed with some of the athletes is that when they first get here, they're a little uncertain about, you know, wanting to get out and do that kind of stuff. But once they get out and start doing it, they actually love doing it. So.
Yeah. It's like anything else. It takes the bad thing about experience is you got to get it.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you both for your time this afternoon. It's been great getting to talk to you about this, because obviously I've learned a lot about it today, which is always cool to know, and hopefully our viewers were able to do the same. So there you have it from Neil Sabine and Rebecca Hester talking about the 10-year anniversary of the IU East Red Wolves nickname. We'll take a break and be back with more Inside IUE Sports on the other side of the break.